Shalom and welcome to Practical Spirituality here in Asia Torah, in the old city of Jerusalem, overlooking the Western Wall. Dreams. Dreams. What are your dreams? What does it take to achieve them? You might have thought I was going to talk about dreaming today, which is actually a subject I speak a lot on, but I wasn't going to talk about that. What I was going to talk about is your actual dreams in your life. What are you dreaming? You know, when I think about young children, they have dreams about life and what they could be, and they you know, there's no end to the possibilities. There's great possibility for children, and we say that to them often, that, you know, you can be anything you want, you know, when you grow up. I mean, maybe they don't say that in the observant community, but the rest of the world does. You know, you can, you know, they're just, it's like, I see it as like the center with like 1,000 arrows pointing off of this center where it could go in any direction. And what happens then is that it slowly, you know, obviously you have to learn to figure out what it is you do want, like where you're going to actually point to, because if you don't point to something, you know, if you try to point to everything, you'll wind up with nothing. So you do have to narrow it down. But often it gets narrowed down to other people's dreams, not your own. You know, it gets narrowed down to dreams you were influenced toward instead of the dreams that you might have had. And so what happens is that we're not really dreaming our dream, but we're dreaming some dream that was given to us by someone else, someone else's. And make a bracha boruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nהיה b'dvaro. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the mechanics of what would possibly take away our dreams. So it's mostly what stops us is the fear of rejection and failure that stop us from our dreams. Because the fear of rejection and the fear of failure, these two fears, rejection and failure, are inevitable if you live your dream. Meaning, if you were to actually pursue your dream in your life, not everyone's going to be so excited. Not everyone's going to be so happy about it. I mean, think about a fundraiser who's got to call 100 people for his cause. And his cause is, you know, right now I'm helping some guy who has 1,200 special needs kids living on site in his you know, institution. And so he's arriving in Toronto in a few hours to fundraise there. And you might think this is a table for two. You might think that it's you know, like special needs, like wouldn't everyone like that? Like special needs kids to be helped? And the answer is no. Yeah, everyone would like that, but how many people are going to get behind it? And the answer is certain types of people. And there will be those people, but everyone else is going to be a rejection, meaning everyone else is going to give $180 to his organization. But right now the deficit's $2 million. And so $180 is a rejection and a failure. Although, you know, you can build off $180 over a period of time, you know, like you could, but I don't think they have that kind of time. So, but it's fine, because all they're looking for is, out of the 100 people he'll talk to in Toronto, he just needs 2 or 3. And 2 or 3 get behind him, introduce him to the right people, he's done. He's done with the whole task. But how many rejections will he have to suffer till he gets there? And the chance of failure are also very high. Now, rejection and failure are the most scary things in the world, because rejection and failure are triggers for other types of voices inside of us. So what does rejection and failure trigger? So rejection can trigger unwanted, unloved, unacceptable, unwanted, unloved, unacceptable, etc. Like a million other ones. Or failure can trigger incapable, dumb, not good enough, etc. And a bunch more after that. So rejection and failure are fears that trigger deep pain inside of us, very deep pain inside of us. And so what happens is, whatever your dreams might be in your life, like things you'd like to accomplish, if you want to actually accomplish them, you have to break through rejection and failure. You're going to have to break through it, because a lot of people are going to reject, and a lot of people, and it's going to fail multiple times, because the price for success is failure. You have to fail a lot of times to get to success. Price for success is failure. Very few people are willing to pay that price. Most people taste failure and they spit it out quickly and move in another direction. But successful people chew on the fat of failure. They chew on the fat of failure and learn all its lessons. I was once putting my guitar in the first class on an LL flight, and I said to the nice stewardess who helped me put my guitar there, I said to her, would you say there's a lot of competition at the top? And she said, yeah, a lot of competition at the top. And I said, well, that's interesting you say that, because there's only 6 seats in first class. There's 20 in business. They're all basically empty, most likely because they're still in the lounge. And, they're called last to the plane. And then I said, look at the back of the plane. The back of the plane looked like a jungle. People were like, there was almost a fist fight breaking out as we spoke over, positioning in the overhead compartment, and a bunch of other people fighting over seats and stuff. And one person had reclined into the legs of the person behind them, and the plane still hadn't even taken off, but he thought it was time to recline. Anyway, there was like total mayhem all going on at once, which is why I thought of it, because I looked down there before I even spoke to the stewardess about this, and noticed like this plane was about to like erupt in an all-out riot. And I said, well, if you look at this plane, it looks like all the competition's at the bottom. There's very little competition at the top. And she thought about that for a moment. She said, yeah, that's an interesting thought. And the reason is because very few people in humanity are willing to, as I said before, chew on the fat of failure and go fail. Like it says in the Facebook headquarters, they have signs up, to motivate the workers there. They have signs up there in Facebook that say, one of the signs up says, fail hard. Fail hard. As opposed to, I don't know what it would be, a try hard. I don't know what it was playing on. Maybe it was playing on try hard, but it was saying fail hard, because failure is the pushback that you're doing something. You understand? Like, until something's failed, you don't know that you did anything yet. Failing is the indicator that something's getting done here. And the fact that you failed means that you pushed up enough against the world that it failed. And until you failed, you have no idea where you are geographically. And the same is true about rejection. Same is true about rejection in that till you get a proper rejection, how do you know where the edge of your social interaction is? How do you know where the edge of that is? I remember many years ago, I was doing this class, and I had this live feed camera up, and I was teaching, and I forget, I can't remember exactly the circumstances, but it was, I don't know. I think maybe what happened one day was, think I saw some other public speakers saying stuff that was really provocative, but on point, but really provocative and on point. And I thought to myself, gee, I'm really holding back. I'm nowhere near the edge here. I'm nowhere near the edge. I'm playing safe as a teacher, I play safe. And you can understand, obviously, being part of the orthodox world, that like maybe you should play it safe. After all, there's a constant critic involved in being part of the black hatitude community, where there's like, you would think like, you better be careful what you say, because, you could really get some negative pushback from that. And so I decided, you know what I'll do? I'll try it. I'll try just saying what should be said rather than what maybe would be acceptable by everyone. And I'll stop being so vanilla. This is many years ago. This is over a decade ago. And I said, okay, let's go. And I started just saying the truth. I started just speaking the truth. And I'll just say the truth. And we'll see how it pushes back. And in a way, I'm kind of not practicing what I preach because it never pushed back. But I didn't push harder. Maybe I should be pushing harder. But my commitment was to say the truth. And I really, I say the truth. But it never pushed back. And then I got kind of embarrassed for my career before that, my vanilla career. Of like, did I even say anything those years? Like, was anything said so important? With constantly looking over my shoulder. Basically, 10 years ago, I took my rearview mirror off the windshield and I just threw it out the window. And I put the pedal to the metal. And that has made all the difference in my career and my listenership. And I think it's very refreshing for a lot of people. And I hope I'm not exposing too many people, but that would be obviously the feedback I'd get if people felt exposed. They generally attack. And that's almost, it's only, I get trolled once a year maybe, but, trolls, you just send them the following message. You say, I put myself out publicly, exposing myself and therefore my wife and kids every single day live. And if you can't send an email with your name and phone number on it, your real name and phone number on it from a real email address, consider this our last communication. And that's it. They go away. Never come back. And so you're really not supposed to answer a troll, but I figured that answer is the strong answer. And so that's my answer, is that have the courage to engage with me because I'm engaging with the world. And, like how dare you send me an anonymous message with an attack in it. Anyway, but that's the most pushback I ever got. What I'm basically saying, ladies and gentlemen, is start pushing. Start pushing. And when you push, you get to your dreams. And when you get to your dreams, you sleep well at night. You know why? You know why you sleep well? Because if you live your dreams long enough, you start getting feedback. And feedback's very important for human beings. We need feedback. Not necessarily for our ego, like feel better that people said, hey, that was great. Oh, that really meant a lot to me. It's not just for that. That helps, especially when you're in a low mood, to hear good feedback about something. You'd like to hear anything good in a low mood. That's why you should get rid of your low mood clothing. You should be wearing, if you're in a low mood, like wear an outfit you'd wear to a wedding that day. Wear an outfit you wear, so that you're in a low mood, right? It's not going to be a great day. But everyone you meet just says, hey, you just look terrific today. Wow, where are you going? And of course, you're just in a low mood. But it'd be nice to have someone tell you look terrific all day long in a low mood. That'd be a good thing. But instead, what do people do? They put on a hoodie and just, something baggy and just kind of mope around all day. And so another hint for low moods, by the way, is that you want to do all the things that you said you do in your life in a low mood day. Have you ever noticed when you're in a low mood, you drop the things you do? Bad idea. The only thing you have in your life is the stuff you do, and then your state of being while you're doing it. So if your state of being is really low, what's left? Meaning you don't have a state of being, what's left? The things you do. But what do people do? They drop the things they do in a low mood. Really bad idea. And that's a good way to get your low moods to stick longer. So when in a low mood, you dress for success. You do the things you'd said you'd do. Meaning things you're committed to, you do them. Not a good day not to show up to work. That is the day to show up to work, for sure. And the last thing is that you do not click on any thoughts that day. All your horrible dark thinking comes without analysis. No clicking on the headlines. You just let it scroll by. My thoughts are a scrolling marquee. And just scrolling by. No going in there to analyze situations. You're not fixing a thing that day. No fixing nothing. And if you follow this advice, you'll be doing much better. Since I'm on it, I might as well finish it. A little extra caffeine in a low mood day. Only on the fog lifter in the morning, but bump it up a little bit. And any other mind-altering substances, like, for example, having one alcoholic beverage would be a good idea. One alcoholic beverage might also shift things. You want to also get cardiovascular activity, or even weightlifting is fine. And of course, you're going to have to force yourself to do any of these things, because in a low mood, you have no motivation. But a little cardiovascular activity would be good for you. Help other people, because you're a lost cause. So that's a good day to work on. Go help someone who has a life, because you don't on a low mood day. You have no life on that day. And there was something else to do. Whatever. Okay. That's enough for now. Back to our picture. Now, when you push up against rejection and failure, when you push up against them, by pursuing your dreams, and obviously you got to figure out what your dreams are, because, I really believe that every one of you had a dream when you were younger of like what you could do. All of you had that dream. Now, you probably don't know what it is anymore, because what happened is, picture yourself laying down in the Sahara Desert. You're laying down on like a sand dune, and you're just chilling on the sand dune. And that represents your dream, and it's the shape of your body, because there you are laying down on the sand dune. That's the dream. And what happened was there was a rejection and failure possibility, rejection and failure sandstorm that hit. And so now there's zero visibility. So thank God you brought a little pair of goggles and a straw to point the opposite direction of the sand just to breathe through. And after a while, the sand's covering you and covering you and covering you and covering you. So now there's the shape of your body, but it's sand. But then now that it's starting to get filled in between the legs, around the arms, around the head, and after a while it's gone. And that's how so many people, I meet so many adults who have no idea what they're here to contribute. So many adults. And that's a really, really painful thing. That's a really painful thing, to not know what you're here to contribute. And it's frustrating, it's scary. It's very scary, because your life's going on, you're not sure what you're here to contribute, or maybe you don't know at all. And it can lead to also a long-term painful, perhaps depression, because one of the keys to general well-being is meaning in life. And what could bring more meaning in life than the meaning your life represents, than the life that you mean? Like, what did you mean? When you die, like, what are they going to say? What did it mean that you were alive? So it totally changes the way you think of the words meaning in life. Because meaning in life can be a nebulous kind of, get meaning in life, maybe discover something meaningful, and then you'll have more meaning in life. But this is more, this meaning in your life, meaning that your life had meaning. Think about that. That's really important, that your life had meaning. That you, having walked this earth, made a difference. in a unique way that was in consonance with your with your actual essence. I'm going to say that again, that you're having been on this earth, that the earth was different and touched by the fact that you were here, and that difference you made was in consonance. Consonance as opposed to dissonance. Sorry about the fancy word, but it was in concert with your very essence. And when you live that way, there's a buzzy type of vibration that causes it to be received well. Meaning after a rejection, because for example, if you find that as an adult, you'll have friends and family that'll try to push you away from it. They'll be scared for you that you should do such things. So you'll have to deal with some level of rejection and failure. But in general, it will come with a vibrational connectivity with others that it'll be well received. It will succeed. Meaning it will succeed so strongly that you'll be really unstoppable. Where people can't help but say yes to that which you're contributing. I mean, how cool would that be? And if you catch that, if you can find it and you can live it, what'll happen eventually is you're getting a lot of feedback. Now we're back to the ego. Is that I don't mean the kind of feedback that helps on low mood days, and then we did that whole parentheses on low mood days. No, I meant the kind of feedback that has fed back to you that the meaning that you've discovered that your life represents is truly the one. Why? Because it's getting fed back to you. There's feedback. Feedback can come in the form of thank you, from gratitude of people that you've touched. Feedback often comes in the form monetarily. Hey, people were willing to pay something for this. And it could be just a business you created. But like, that's your calling. And you were able to do that and then take the money of that business and do good things with that money. But the fact that someone paid you for something that you created is a great feedback. It's speaking volumes about your contribution and adding volumes to meaning. And once you're hitting the level of feedback, which is, in other words, is a stamp that you've struck gold on your meaning in life. Once you're getting that feedback, so then you sleep well at night. You sleep well. Because your life's meaningful. You sleep well. You wake up well. You wake up motivated. You're back out there. And you're making that difference again. Now, I'd like to share with you something very interesting. Raise your hand if you're afraid of death. Let's try that again. You guys weren't ready for a raise your hand moment. Okay? I'm going to say that again. Just everyone loosen up your shoulders first. Because you're all been sitting here this whole time like this. Okay? I want a real honest answer, and everyone's got to vote. Okay? No one's allowed to not vote. Raise your hand, honestly, if on a scale of 1 to 10, you're somewhere between 1 and 10 afraid of death. Okay. So, of the, I don't know how many people are in here, but let's say of 20 of you, 25 of you, there were about 3 of you who didn't raise your hand. Okay. Now, I'd like to share with you something amazing. And that is that people who have discovered their meaning of what they're here for lose their fear of death. And people who have not discovered their meaning in their life here have a fear of death, usually higher than 1 and closer towards 10. Now, you may say that makes total sense because, if I haven't found my meaning in life, so then dying would be a bummer. So that would make some sense. But what?
Who said there is a meaning?
There
is no meaning, then who fears dying?
Yeah, that is the nihilist approach. The nihilist approach. I don't know if you've heard. There's like a whole there's kind of this atheist leaning towards left wing party. You know, those are all the identity politics people and everything. But there's also left-wing nihilists left-wing atheists that it often leads to nihilism because life becomes meaningless at that point. And sadly, it does lead to, you know, who cares if I die? Because I'm just random molecules bumping into each other, and you know, like, who cares if I die? But what's scary about that is that it could also lead to who cares if a couple million people die because I championed some sensational value that we've created. And, you know, people always know, and everyone's always lulled to sleep by the left wing because they're so peaceful that we think that they could never hurt anybody. But more than Adolf Hitler, the Nazis, more than the Nazis, the Stalinists, the communists of Soviet Russia, I think they killed almost double the people, and they were left wing, you know, atheist nihilists who, you know, they generally get behind values in an excited kind of heroic way. They feel, you know, I don't know if you've noticed, those who follow things like today, they get really excited behind their causes, and whatever it is, whatever right they feel like they got to champion, they're always talking rights, you know, as opposed to responsibility, which would be a much better discussion. But because rights, and generally responsibility falls on you, rights fall on everyone else, right? You start championing rights, so that becomes everyone else's problem. You champion responsibility, that's going to fall on you. A better thing to be championing is responsibility, which is what the Torah says. Because the Torah says that, quite the opposite. It says that each one of us has a soul that is of God, and because of that, so that's going to lead to my sense of a responsibility, and that will be my focus, much more than rights. You know, of why everyone else has to protect my rights. You know, it's rather how can I be responsible? And when I'm speaking in subtle terms, but the person who's best at explaining this is Jordan Peterson. He articulates the difference between rights and responsibility amazingly, and he's got a lot of good classes on those subjects. Anyway, but you're right. From a nihilistic atheist perspective, you know, death shouldn't be a big deal. But here's the thing: someone who's actually living the dream, someone who's found their meaning and now they're living their meaning, should be afraid of death, because everything they've done is going to be lost. And the answer is no, for the following two reasons. One is, once you've found your purpose of life, dying's not so scary because you know, you're doing what you came to do, and so dying's okay. You know, like, you did it, and now you're dying doing it. This is why I always say that that, you know, like 30 years from now, when all these, you know, the black hat Israel, called the Haredi community, the black hat community will be the 18-year-olds 30 years from now. There won't be other 18-year-olds, because just even now, not 30 years from now, 18 years from now, the births that are happening in the hospitals this hour, while we're speaking, there's lots of births. So the majority of those births are from the black hat community. So 18 years from now, they will be the majority of the country, and the majority of the 18-year-olds. Now, you could still populate the army with secular Israelis. I can't imagine they'll put up with that anymore. But, you know, I suppose you could take a minority of the 18-year-old population and make them the army, but no one's going to stand for that 18 years from now. But 30 years from now, forget about it. That's who the army will be 30 years from now. It will be the community from the black hat community. But the thing is that they will be amazing fighters, because they'll die doing the purpose. And when you have a purpose, you don't mind dying. There's just something about knowing your purpose that dying is less scary. And if you're defending Israel and what you believe in the deepest depths of your heart is that what we do here as the Jewish people in our sacred land, doing our ancestral heritage in our ancestral lands, that if that's your purpose, so fighting in the army, you're cool with dying there. And so you're going to fight in a different way than a secular Israeli who stands to lose his dreams, which are very different than the Torah Jew. The Torah Jew's dreams are to serve God, which could be fighting in the army. Will be serving God if that's what you're doing. And whereas the secular Israeli, even though he loves his country and he would defend it, but he defends it nationalistically, quite like someone might defend any other country. Obviously, our history is a little more intense, and we went through the Holocaust, and he wants to prevent more dying Jews, obviously. So it's more than just fighting for Russia, but it's quite similar to a Russian fighting for Russia. And but the thing is every moment on the battlefield is a potential sacrifice of a car he dreamt of driving, of a house he dreamt of owning, of a trip to South America. They love to go to South America or to India after the army. And it's also at the expense, meaning his time on the battlefield is scary because he could lose the things that he was kind of dreaming about. And in fact, biblically, we had a Kohen. We had a Kohen, for the priest class of Israel. They're all the people from the tribe of Levi. And the tribe of Levi split into the Levites and the Kohanim. Anyone last name Cohen's from there, or Katz is Kohen Sedek, which means righteous or holy Kohen. And so there was a Kohen whose job was to walk around the camps of before battle, when they were going to go to battle. So they would walk around the camps and actually sniff out scared people. You weren't allowed to fight if you were scared of dying. Can you imagine removing every soldier who was scared of dying from what would happen if today we took the Israeli army and removed everyone who was scared of dying? But the Torah is teaching us a principle, and that principle is that scared of dying means you're unworthy on a battlefield. You're not worth having out there. Scared of dying is not going to be good for us. Imagine you're in the battlefield. You're scared, but you're trying not to let anyone see. And you look at the guy next to you, and he's just he's like that. What's going to happen to you when you were already on the edge of that? Yeah, you're going there too. You're just gonna go right into that same fear that guy's in. You were just almost there. You were holding on for dear life. You look to your right, the guy is shaking. You look to your left, he's making in his pants. And you're the guy in the middle who was on the verge of both. You're gone. You're just gone. And so Torah tells us that you can't be afraid going into battle. And so this Kohen would go around the camps, the battle camps, and he would find these guys. And they even had 3 principal fears, and that was maybe you'll miss out on something. If you're afraid you're going to miss out on something, you're out of here. And those 3 were, you were engaged, so you're already you don't want to miss your wedding. Some other guy's going to marry the girl you're engaged to. That'd be lame. So you're not going to be the best soldier. You planted a vineyard, and you have yet to reap. You've built a house, and you've yet to have lived in it. You're not going to be enjoying being a soldier in battle. Not that anyone should enjoy it, but you're not going to be a very good soldier, having not even lived in the house you built. And by the way, if anyone missed those 3 categories, the last category, and this is where he had to sniff good, was anyone who's afraid at all. Now, there's something amazing that when you look in the Talmud, you remember where this is, by the way? I think it's in Makos, is it? Where is that? Oh, it's in Sota, yeah. In Sota, here's the crazy part, that when you click on the word afraid, that's what we're discussing. Someone afraid to go to battle. When you click on the word afraid, guess what the Talmud says? You know what they're afraid of? They're afraid that on Rosh Hashanah, they got the blessing that they'd live. Because Rosh Hashanah, it's decided who will live and who will die throughout the year. They're afraid that on Rosh Hashanah, It said they would live, which is good. So they're on the battlefield and they're going to live. Except they're afraid that maybe they had done something wrong this year, since Rosh Hashanah. Maybe they had done something wrong. Meaning maybe they had broken one of the 55,000 laws. One of them. And has lost his protection from above. Maybe he lost his protection because he had done one thing wrong in we counted 55,000 laws in the Rambam. He had blown one of the 55,000 laws, which he probably did tshuva for, but maybe he feels he didn't do enough tshuva for. Now, what's the obvious implication? Who's fighting? Who fights? We already said whoever fights has to be someone who's not afraid whatsoever of death. Meaning, this is the meaning. This is the meaning. The meaning is serving God, and he's serving God by protecting who Israel is and what Israel does in its ancestral heritage, on its ancestral lands. Protecting that is the mitzvah. And mitzvahs are the serving of God, and that's what he's there to do. And there's no fear of missing out on nothing, because that is what we're here to do, is those mitzvahs. And that's the mitzvah at hand. But now we've added a whole other category. You've never done anything wrong. You've done nothing wrong. What do you call someone who's done nothing wrong?
Someone who's done nothing.
No. No, meaning he's just really careful with Jewish law.
Tzaddik.
Yeah, it's called a tzaddik. Meaning to be in the Israeli army, you have to be a total tzaddik. You have to be a total, complete tzaddik. And if you did something wrong, you fixed it. You did teshuvah, which may include, you brought a little shepsela to the Beis Hamikdash for an accidental breaking of Shabbos. So you'd have to bring a sheep and go through a whole process of teshuvah. But you go to the battle having nothing on your slate between you and God. Now, could you get anything more backwards than the current situation here in Israel? Could you get a more backwards situation of who fights for us? The only one who could possibly fight for us would be God through these soldiers. But right now we have the polar opposite of what Torah says is the Israeli Defense Force. It's the polar opposite of the Israeli Defense Forces. That's what Torah says. And Torah's prophecy. Prophecies from God. That means it's true, it's real, it's lasting, it's the real deal. And we are living the exact polar opposite of that. And the funny thing is, the observant Jews don't want to go send their kids to the army, which is kind of funny, but it's not that funny. You know why? Because they'd be happy to send their kids to the army, happy to send them, if they would hand over the keys of the army to a particular rabbi. His name's Rav Chaim Kanievsky. If they would hand the keys over to the rabbi and let the Rabbi Chaim take care of business from now on, of the entire army, he runs everything. He runs the Torah study programs going on. He runs the kashrut level. He runs his job's to make sure that all these holy Torah scholars are in a non-mixed gendered military, which is the way military should be, because half your population should not see certain things so that they can raise children to be holy and pure. And if he handed the keys over to Reb Chaim, so then we would get busy. But where the keys are right now, it's not a good protection for those children from the families that have literally spent centuries, millennia, living and dying for the values that would be ripped out of a very protected 18-year-old kid who's so protected. These kids are they're sensitive, pure kids. and they need to be protected. And so the whole discussion about the Haredim going to the army is like, I've only been speaking about it now for 10 minutes, but why can't the world have this 10-minute discussion? It's so simple to understand. You could be the most secular, oh, the Haredim should go to the army person in the world, and hear the last 10 minutes of what I said and said, you know what? It's more complicated than that, isn't it? It's much more complicated than that. Maybe we have to rethink these things rather than just spout off our party lines and bleeding heart feelings about this thing and this subject of the army. In conclusion, after two major digressions, live your dreams, push up against rejection and failure till the feedback's enough that you can really make a huge difference in your life and make a difference in the lives of others. Get that feedback, sleep well, and be a really happy person. Shalom, everyone.